everybody to day 2 of the of our workshop of this very interesting conference on Islam and Liberty. Today's session 4, according to what I'm reading, titled Pathways Towards Peaceful Coexistence. We have 4 different presentations today. I guess we can go in chronological order because I don't see any other, like the order, I mean, they're listed on the paper. So I think presenting first, we have Living Together in a Free Society, Civil Society and Religious Communities in Bosnia and the Balkans by Hysni Skura from the University College Better. Hysni is a scholar of religion and society whose research focuses on Islamic studies, political science, and international relations. He's been a lecturer at Better University since 2016, and since 2024, he's been the head of the Department of Islamic Sciences. His scholarly interests include religion, social cohesion, interreligious relations, religion in public life, and the role of faith-based actors in conflict resolution. Our second presentation will be given by Mr. Genti Kruja. I said that right?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Titled Interfaith Coexistence Across Centuries, Albania as a Contemporary Model of Religious Freedom and Peaceful Coexistence. Genti is a professor of sociology and religion and director of the Research Center for Sustainable Development and Dialogue at Better University College in Tirana. He's been the Secretary General of the Interreligious Council of Albania since 2018, and in 2025 he was elected for a second term as an expert of religious freedom at the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. He's also an international fellow at the KICIID program. More recently, in 2024, he was elected president of the European National Interreligious Bodies. And in 2025, he was elected as president of the Religions for Peace Europe. Our third presentation will be given by my 2 colleagues here at IUS, Professors Hamza Preljević and Professors Mirza Ljubović. Their paper is titled Public Diplomacy and Faith in Divided Societies. Bosnia Herzegovina is a case study. Professor Preljević is an assistant professor and program coordinator in the Department of Political Science and International Relations here at the International University of Sarajevo. But inshallah, he'll be associate professor soon, right? Previously, he was the director of IUS's Balkan Studies Center. His research interests include Bosnian politics, Western Balkan studies, EU integration, and security studies with a particular focus on transatlantic relations and NATO's engagement with the Western Balkans. And Professor Mirza Ljubović is an assistant professor in State and Public International Law, in the State and Public International Law program coordinator here at the Faculty of Law at the International University of Sarajevo. He received his doctorate in Public International Law from the University of Mostar. Additionally, he obtained a certificate in Comparative Constitutional Law and European Law from the University of Virginia Law School in the United States. He's published many articles in reputable journals and has been a part of numerous projects while employed here at IUS. And finally, last but definitely not least, we have Professor Václava Tlili from the University of West Bohemia. Her paper is titled Constitutionalism, Integration, and Negotiation of Muslim Identity in Europe. Professor Tlili is affiliated with the University of West Bohemia in Pilsen, where she teaches in the Department of Middle Eastern and African Studies. She specializes in the anthropology of religion and Islamic studies, focusing on lived Islamic traditions, ritual practice, and the social transmission of religious knowledge. Her work combines ethnographic research with historical and textual inquiry, and she's also translated seminal Arabic texts into Czech, including the Constitution of Medina and Umar's Covenant. So that's very interesting.
I think the 4th speaker, Dr. Václava, she's not going to join us.
She's not going to.
But we have a recording. We have a recording of her presentation. We have a recording of her presentation. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So if we are willing to, but we have a recording of her presentation.
Depends on the time.
Yeah, sure.
It's better to discuss.
The digital age is magical, isn't it? Okay, so here's how I think we're going to do this. I think we should, each presenter will get 20 minutes, correct? That's what we agreed upon. I think everybody should present first, and then we should take questions sort of for the audience. I'll try to come up with a few of my own questions if I can think of anything to get things started. But of course, I encourage participation, and my role here is to be moderator and to just keep things flowing. So without any further, if anybody have any questions about that or concerns? Okay. Without any further ado then, let us start our first paper. Mr. Shukri, Professor Shukri, I apologize. And I'll keep the time. You got 20 minutes, and once you get close, I'll do like one of these like taps to like let you know you got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
All right.
I think
Start.
it will take shorter.
Okay, that's fine. That's even better.
And I have my timing here.
Okay.
So hello everyone. Good morning, and I wish you a happy Juma day. And today, Juma Mubarak. Today I'm going to present my research or my paper on living together in a free society, civil society and religious communities in Bosnia and the Balkans. Of course, I will have let's say a special emphasis in the case of the Albania, especially because I know it very well because I have research on that topic on the religious communities in Albania, especially. But of course, it will go with a comparative manner in general. So first of all, I'd like to start with some of the research questions that helped me develop my research through let's say, the full journey. How can civil society and religious communities live together in Balkans? How do civil society and religious communities coexist in Balkans? So there are two different things. So to live together and to coexist together, so the Balkan people know it very well. And what role do civil society and religious communities play in sustaining a free society in the Balkans? So yesterday it was mentioned that Bosnia is a special case or a special case study. I agree with that, but I would say that the whole Balkans is a special case study because each country differs from the other one, even though there are so many similarities in between. So why Balkans and why does it matter? When you say Balkans, you have the map in your mind on one side, but the other thing is that you have religious diversity, that it is for sure, but you have even post-conflict trauma. So each country has their own, let's say, challenges and conflicts and traumas, but it is a general thing for the Balkan region. Coexistence is not something that has to be taken for granted. It's not something that came automatically into life, and it is a mechanism that goes on. It is something that should not be taken for granted, and we should invest all the time in that regard. So, with the means that we will see in the coming slides of this presentation. Of course, it requires institutions, civic actions, and limits on power. So sometimes things intervene in one another's space. The state actors intervene in civil society. Civil society try to play the state actor role, etc. So it is a challenging thing. So that's why it is. That's why Balkans matter. Some of the main points is that the reality of the Balkans is that the influence of foreign policies and the post-Yugoslav wars politicized religion. So in this region we have, let's say, we have been living in a very, let's say, peaceful way until these things happen. And in the Balkans, when you speak about religion, you speak about identity, you speak about memory, you speak about power. So, for example, the Bosnian case can explain very well the power, let's say, perspective, the memory perspective, the identity perspective, because you have three different communities, three different religions, you have three different power or showing power, like becoming leaders and presidents and party leaders, etc., etc. And in the whole region, civil societies emerged as a counterweight to what was happening, to the trauma, to the conflict, and they used to somehow to make the equilibrium between these two things. In general, ethno-religious divisions remain stronger than unifying factors. I'm speaking about the Balkan region, especially where religion overlaps with nationalism and state authority. So we should have in mind that the thing. So Bosnia and Herzegovina often is described as a microsome of the Balkans, exemplifies the difficulties and possibilities of coexistence among diverse religious and ethnic communities. If we see the near past of the Bosnia, and if we see the reality right now, it is obvious that it is a really a good example to see how people can work on healing themselves, on healing their roots, and become, let's say, a connected society. So I have like three main points in that introduction. living together in a free society is a central challenge for post-conflicted and multi-religious states. So it's not easy to have that, let's say, that coexistence, to live in peace with one another. Different religions like Islam, Orthodox Christianity, Catholic Christianity, and Judaism have coexisted in the region for centuries, shaping cultural traditions and social norms. And civil society has emerged as a crucial arena for rebuilding trust, promoting dialogue, and defending democratic values. Non-governmental organizations, grassroots initiatives, independent media, and human rights groups have attempted to counterbalance ethno-religious nationalism and institutional fragmentation. So in this slide, I would like to mention a little bit the case of Albania, that what makes it different from the Bosnia and what makes it different from the other Balkan region is that in Albania we have only one nationality, but we have many religions. Maybe Professor Genti will explain more in details later. In Albania, there are 5 religious communities that are recognized by law. So we have Sunni Islam, we have Bektashism, that is a way of, let's say, Sufi Islam. We have Orthodox Christianity, we have Catholic Christianity, and we have Protestant Church. So these 5 religious communities are officially recognized by law, and they work as independent actors or institutions within the state of Albania. So we have the same nation, we have one nation, but we have different religious communities or religions, and it is, let's say, it is taken for granted that each of these religion communities, they have an outsource, or they have a state that comes from outside Albania that is helping them. We have Islam that is taking a lot of help from Arab countries, from Turkey and other let's say, Muslim countries. We have Catholic Church or Catholic Christianity that has in their back, they have Vatican. We have Orthodox Church that they have Greece mainly, and the Protestants and the Bektashis. So this outsource, let's say, funding and things, they have an influence in the way how people perceive and live their religion. But thanks God, until now, we couldn't see or we couldn't find any single case from 1912, when Albania got independence from the Ottoman Empire, until now, we didn't find any case where a conflict started because of the religious divisions. So they maintained to live in peace with one another, and we have a lot of examples of how religious leaders and religious clergy, they maintain to, let's say, the imam would go to church to protect the church against the Muslims who were indoctrinated and going to destroy the church, and we have the priest who went to the mosque because the Christians wanted to go to the mosque and to destroy the mosque because someone was doing that, let's say, that fitna in between. And there are a lot of examples, and later on we have the communist regime as well. This is a differing point between the Balkan states, between Albania and the other Balkan states, because Albania was never part of the Yugoslavian, let's say, empire or Yugoslavian rule, but we had even a harsher communist regime. So in Albania, religion was forbidden by law, even though in other Balkan countries there were, let's say, difficulties and challenges in terms of religion freedom. In Albania, it was forbidden by law in 1967, so everything was stopped. The churches and mosques, they got destroyed by our own people, and no one could declare themselves that I am a Muslim, I am a Christian, or at all, I am a religious one, because Albania was declared an atheist state by the constitution. So it was even harsher. Maybe that one made it possible for Albanians to become, like, to unite with each other, because the enemy is one. So they have the communist regime as an enemy, and they had to come together to become even stronger. It is important to have a historical background on the Balkans and religion in general. I have taken like 2 main cases, the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire as well, with their 2 different systems on how they used to rule the region in general. So the relationship between religion and society in the Balkans has been shaped by successive imperial, national, and ideological frameworks. Under Ottoman rule, religious communities were organized through the millet system. So I think you know the millet system, which granted a degree of autonomy in matters such as education, family law, and worship. While this system enabled coexistence, it institutionalized separation rather than integration and reinforced communal boundaries because it had everyone to live in their own space. And later on we have the Austro-Hungarian Empire, who came with some different elements of modernization and legal reform, but religious identity remained closely tied to national, let's say, national affiliation. In the 20th century, socialist Yugoslavia imposed a model of state secularization that marginalized religious institutions from public life. Religion was not eradicated, but it was confined largely to the private sphere, while a shared Yugoslav identity was promoted. So it is the thing that I was saying regarding the Albanian one. It was moved to a private, let's say, sphere, but in Albania it was forbidden in general. The main thing that we see in the Balkan region is that nationality mainly overlaps religion. So when you say I am, for example, not the Albanian case, but when you say I am Albanian in Macedonia, it is obvious that you are Muslim. When you say I am Bosniak, it means that you are Muslim. When you say I am Croatian, you are at a certain religion. So that there is a mix in between the nationality and the religion in the whole region, with an exception to Albania, because in Albania someone might say that I am Albanian first. They do not declare themselves to be I am a Muslim, I am a Christian, or I am Orthodox. They will say I am Albanian first, and you cannot identify them until you ask them. But in the Albanian culture, it is a big, let's say, dishonor to ask someone what's your religion, because as it was mentioned even in the old scriptures, they will say that I am Albanian again. And there is a saying of an Albanian poet that somehow it was misused because it's a full poetry, but they took only two verses of that poetry, and it is stating that do not destroy churches and mosques. The religion of Albanian is Albanism. So it is somehow sending people to paganism, but it was used so well during the communist years or the communist times. So even nowadays we see the effects of that saying, because they immediately will say to you that I am Albanian and not saying that I am Muslim or I am Christian or someone else. What is the role of religious communities? Religious communities in the Balkans play an ambient role in the social life. On one hand, they provide moral guidance, humanitarian assistance, and a sense of community in societies marked by trauma and uncertainty. Religious institutions were among the first to respond to humanitarian needs during and after the wars, offering aid to displaced persons and vulnerable population. Maybe this goes in line with the yesterday Edo's presentation, that he was saying that we are neighbors with the European Union or Europe in general, so they are giving a lot of funds. So it is a way of how civil society is used to promote themselves and being part of society, helping people, helping them to find some jobs, or somehow providing some traineeships on skills and so on and so forth. Moreover, religious traditions contribute to cultural heritage and social solidarity. For many individuals, religion serves as a source of meaning, ethical orientation, and communal belonging. On the other hand, religious communities have been often criticized for their involvement in nationalist politics. During the conflicts of 1990s, segments of religious leadership supported or legitimized ethno-nationalist agendas. In the post-war period, some religious institutions have maintained close ties with political elites, reinforcing segregation and reinsisting reforms related to gender equality, minority rights, or secular governance. In this case, I can mention maybe just as an example, in Albania, when religion was banned by law in 1967, the head of Muslim community was, let's say, relieved from his duties, and someone else was appointed in his place. Someone that is, let's say, part of the party was appointed in that place because he has to give the decret, he has to give the fatwa for people to follow the, let's say, the general guidance that comes from communist regime. And even today we are facing the difficulties of that thing. So they are saying that, oh, you Muslim community, you just obey to the ruler of the time. In fact, it was someone that came inside from the party, and it was just play, or what do we say, a joke role in that position. So yes, of course, the Balkan region is not an easy, let's say, environment. It has a lot of difficulties. Civil society in the Balkans consists of vulnerable organizations independent of the state and market that expand after the wars, with international support to promote reconciliation, transitional justice, and social inclusion. For example, even now we cannot talk about a full achieved transitional justice in the whole region, because we are facing a lot of difficulties, even from the state. Even though, for example, the European Union is asking these countries to promote and to have, let's say, steps forward to reach the requirements from the European Union, they are not doing so. For example, one of the main common case is the property return in case of the Albania and some other places. So the state does not return the properties of religious communities properly as they were before they took them. Civil society organization promotes civic identity while monitoring governments, advocating reforms, and fostering inter-communal dialogue. Despite challenges such as dependence on foreign funding, political pressure, and public mistrust, civil society in the region continues to play an important role in promoting democratic norms and challenging exclusionary narratives. Somehow, and again I can give an example from Albania. One of the civil societies that is acting in Albania is international, let's say, brand or name. They had a survey in Albania considering the perception of Albanian society and their belief in the private and public institutions. And the result of it was that the lowest trust in the institution was the governmental institutions, and the highest trust in their perspective was by 80% the religious communities. So they trust more in the religious communities more than in the public institutions or state institutions that we have. So the interaction between civil society and religious communities is that it is characterized by both cooperation and tension. So somehow they cooperate with each other, somehow they have tensions in between. NGOs collaborate with religious leaders or on initiatives related to peace building, trauma healing, and social welfare. Another thing that I'd like to mention is, for example, in Albania, the state is not doing anything regarding the interfaith dialogue and harmony, but when it comes to presenting their country, their state in Europe, the first thing that they say that we are the center of interfaith harmony and dialogue. So they take something that is done by NGOs, is done by religious communities for granted, as it was their let's say, investment. So that's somehow, it hurts, but what can we do? So this is our reality, the Balkan reality. Some of the opportunities, okay. So some of the challenges of living together in such a society are that we face several structural and cultural challenges that hinder into this coexistence in Bosnia and the Balkans. Ethno-religious nationalism remains a dominant political force, often mobilized by elites to maintain power. Education systems are frequently segregated, as seen in the phenomenon of two schools under one roof, where children from different, let's say, ethnic and religious groups take different curricula. So we are living together, but we are not living together. Weak democratic institutions and high levels of corruption further undermine trust in the state. So this is a very common point for the for the Balkan reality. And even though they are pushing hard to fight the corruption and everything, they are finding the ways how to do the corruption, even though they are under the surveillance. And these conditions limit opportunities for meaningful interaction across communal lines and reinforce parallel and social worlds rather than shared public spaces. I see I have 40 more seconds, so I'm going to the last one. So, living together in a free society in the Balkans is not an automatic outcome of peace agreements or constitutional arrangements. So, it is something that you have to invest in it. It is a continuous process that depends on the interaction between social institutions, cultural traditions, and political structures. Religious communities remain influential actors with the capacity to support or undermine pluralism. Civil society offers a critical counterbalance by promoting dialogue, accountability, and inclusive citizenship. A sustainable free society requires both spheres to operate within clear boundaries. Religion as a source of ethical and cultural meaning, and civil society as a driver for democratic engagement and social interaction. Only through such a balance can coexistence move from fragile tolerance to genuine shared life or coexistence. Thank you.
Literally perfect timing. You ended at 20 minutes and 9 seconds. That is about as good as it gets. Okay, so that's very interesting, and I have definitely a couple questions that I'll ask later, but let's move on to our next presenter. I believe that's Genti, you're up next, so we look forward to your presentation, and you also have 20 minutes, so you can begin.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, dear moderator, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today, my presentation, I'd like to highlight Albania as an example of a centuries-long interfaith coexistence where Muslims, Christians, Orthodox, Catholics have lived side by side in spirit of tolerance and pluralism. Despite the severe disruption during the communist era, Albania has experienced a remarkable renewal of religious freedom, interfaith dialogue, and civic cooperation. Today, Albania stands as a contemporary model of peaceful coexistence and social cohesion. In Albania, we have two largest monotheist religions, Islam and Christianity, and 5 different religious communities organized by state. After the division of Europe following the Great Schism between the Western Latin Catholic world, centered in Rome, and Eastern Byzantine Orthodox Church, centered in Constantinople, the Theodosian line divided Albanian territories into 2. Albanians in the north became predominantly Catholic, while laws in the south became predominantly Orthodox. However, unlike in many other parts of Europe, this division did not lead to conflicts. With the incorporation of the Balkan territories into Ottoman rule, a gradual process of Islamization took place among the people of the Balkans. Albanians now belong to 3 different religions, yet once again that religion diversity did not become a factor of division, but rather a source of unity in preserving shared traditions. In fact, Islamization also served as a means of safeguarding Albanian national identity. In the second half of the 19th century, the inhabitants of the 4 villages of Shkreli zone wanted to build a common church, but they could not agree about the place where built it. The village assembly appointed Muslim of Shkreli to decide for the place where the church would be built. We can find in the State Archive in Albania, in Vatican Archive, in Vienna Archive, a lot of examples like this about the interfaith tolerance in Albania. In 1858, at the inauguration of the great Catholic cathedral construction in Shkodra, participated Imam Daud Efendi Burici, a Muslim cleric and director of education in Shkodra. He said, the construction of the cathedral a great joy for all inhabitants regardless of religion. The icon in the middle, life-giving spring, painted in tempera on wood by an anonymous 18th century Albanian artist. There are the Virgin Mary with Jesus above a spring symbolizing life. In the background appears Constantinople, Istanbul, combining Christian and Islamic architectural elements with mosque and church as sign of cultural coexistence. In many cities of Albania, we can see that it's the same square are living together, Orthodox Church, Catholic Church, and mosque from centuries. In 1913, on Independence Day in Shkodër, Catholics and Muslims celebrated together. That night, the church bell and the mosque minaret were tied with a rope from which the Albanian flag was hung. During Ramadan, Catholic merchants in the bazaar kept their shops, especially restaurants and bars, closed out of respect. In early times, Sunday was the main bazaar day, but since it was a holiday for Christians, the Muslim authorities moved it to Wednesday and Saturday. This is the oldest picture that I found in State Archive in Tirana. It's the celebration of the first anniversary of Independent Day of Albania on 28 November 1913 in Vlora. You can see together the Orthodox priest with the Grand Mufti of Albania. They're celebrating with the people of the Vlora city. In 1920, during the assembly session of League Nations Organization, today United Nations, the Indian delegate, approving and considering Albania's acceptance in the United Nations Organization as a good act, emphasized, while interfaith wars were still being fought in the world, in Albania Muslims, Catholics and Orthodox were living in harmony and in representation of Muslim majority country by a Christian and also a priest was an excellent evidence thereof. There are another pictures from 20th and 30th years of last century. You can see again religious leaders from different religious communities in celebration of official national days of Albania. In the speech of Monsignor Vissarion Giovanni, head of the Albanian Orthodox Church in 1937, on the occasion of the funeral ceremony of Haji Vebi Dibra, Grand Mufti of Albania, we can see the maximum appreciation that the Orthodox leader gives to a Muslim leader. His speech is published totally as a full paper in the Zaninal Journal, the Journal of Muslim Community in Albania, in 1937. Even on 30 December 1940, when Father George Fishta passed away, a very famous Catholic priest in Albania, people of the faith gathered at his grave. One of the most moving speeches was delivered by Hafiz Ali Kraya, Imam in Albania. And he told, with you, Father Gege, the nation is elevated and honored before other peoples. Therefore, today the entire Albanian people bows before you. The intellectual youth mourns your loss, and with tears on their faces accompanies you with longing and pain into an eternal life. National poet, Father George. Another example of interfaith tolerance is the history of Jews during Second World War. A few years ago, an exhibition titled 300 Albanian Muslims who saved the Hebrews during the Holocaust was inaugurated in Connecticut, in United States. Another remarkable example. And the author of the book Rescue in Albania, Harvard Sarner, he told in his book, Albania was the one occupied country that evaded the Nazi persecution of Jewish and had the unique survival rate of 100%. It was the only occupied country to have a large Jewish population after the Second World War than before. Unfortunately, after this, let's say, very happy centuries on interfaith dialogue, the atheistic communist regime, which was settled in Albania in 1944, began a savage violence towards religion, making an anti-religious propaganda and persecuting many clergymen and believers. In 1967, Albania was declared the first atheistic country in the world, and as a result, most of the churches and mosques were destroyed. On the top, on the left, is the picture of atheistic museum in Albania, opened by regime. The reopening of the first mosque and the first church in Albania in 1990, after 23 years, was an expression of harmony and brotherhood of religions confronting the communist regime. The Christian and Muslims young people were co-workers in the church and mosque opening ceremonies. With political change in Albania after the 1990s, one of the main freedoms introduced by the new democratic system was freedom of belief, which preceded the broader democratic transition in November 1990. This freedom allowed for the reopening of religious sites and the establishment of traditional religious communities. Freedom of belief began with interfaith cooperation among young Christians and Muslims. Together they reopened both churches and mosques. With the re-establishment of religious communities, the formalization of interfaith dialogue also began. After communism regime, Albania is promoting again his tradition on interfaith cooperation among religious institutions. Albania has visited also by 2 different popes in 2 decades, Pope John Paul II in 1993 and Pope Francis in 2014. They were welcomed not only by Catholics, but also by Muslims, the people of Albania. The important role is being played by the Interreligious Council of Albania, as well in promoting interfaith dialogue through youth and women's activities from all religious communities. The Interreligious Council was established in 2007 by the leaders of the traditional religious communities in Albania. Today there are 5 communities members of the council. During the establishing, we used as a model the Interreligious Council of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have here colleagues from the council, Slajana Sarit and Helen, or colleague from this council. And there are 5 logos of 5 religious communities. We have some boards in the council, presidency board with 5 leaders of 5 different religious communities. Each of them for 1 year is president of the council. I am Secretary General of this council since some years. The executive board, where there are 2 members from each community, 30% of this board are women. And this is the last meeting of the council. And we also established a Department of Women and Department of Youth. There are 5 women in the women department and 10 young people in youth department. This is the last meeting of departments. There are a lot of workshops and interfaith forums organized by the Department of Women and Youth. And last year we organized with these departments the International Symposium on the role of trust actors in climate responsibility and environmental protection, the case of Albania. There are some national consultation with all members of the boards of the council, with representatives from 5 different religious communities. We have a lot of meetings and visits with different delegations, such as a delegation from United States Department for Religious Freedom. We will count also the Secretary General of World Muslim League, Dr. Mohammed ibn Abdul Karim al-Isa, visit and meeting with Monsignor Gallagher, Secretary of Relations with State of Vatican. Visits of every new ambassador in Tirana. The last visit was from the new ambassador of Austria. And the Interreligious Council of Albania participated in the same delegation with the President of the Republic in the homage to Pope Francis in Vatican last year, and in the ceremony of Pope Leo during his ceremony in Vatican. And this is the meeting with the new Pope, with the religious leaders of Albania. We also have 3 awards, 2 international and 1 national. In 2018, the Council valued with the award De Melo for Human Rights in Krakow in Poland. And another national medal is Honor of the Nation from the President of the Republic, and International Honor Certificate from Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Austria. The award from Austria was about the work of interfaith youth and women for a humanitarian project for earthquake zone in Albania in cooperation with Religions for Peace. This is the International Interfaith Conference, Human Fraternity, organized in cooperation with Religions for Peace Europe. As the last activity was organizing a campaign for the promotion of interfaith harmony in cooperation with Hidayah International Institute. And these are some posters of the campaign. We start next days to show in the bus stations, billboards, social media, etc. Last November, we were a co-partner of organizing an international conference of Nostra Aetate in Frankfurt with the participation of the chairman of the council and the president of Episcopal Conference of Catholic Church in Albania. The Interreligious Council is part of Religions for Peace organization, the union of all interreligious councils of the world. We are participating in different meetings such as in Berlin, Brussels, Rome, Warsaw, New York, and the most important event that the Council participated was the 10th World Assembly of the Religions for Peace held in Lindau, Germany, with the participation of the President of Germany. Last September, we participated in the International Interfaith Forum and Board Meeting of Religions for Peace Europe in Helsinki, and since last year I was elected as the President of Religions for Peace Europe. European national interreligious bodies, or interreligious councils of Europe, part of Religions for Peace Europe, organized in 2023 the board meeting in Tirana, in Albania, and we organized a study trip with all religious communities. The interreligious cooperation in Albania is mentioned almost every year in the report of religious freedom, which is published by the Department of State. And last year, the Council was part of the report of OSCE ODIHR as a best practice with other international institutions as Religions for Peace. Now the Council is part of the European Network for Interreligious Dialogue and the Council of Europe, published officially in their webpage. There are a lot of statements of the Council during last year. Another important investment on interfaith dialogue is religious education in Albania. Today there are universities funded by religious communities, and there are also 3 theology departments, Islamic, Orthodox, and Catholic. There are some conferences, open lectures on the history of religion, different activities, sport activities, and we organized until now 13 different symposiums, interfaith symposiums between 3 theological departments. And the last symposium topic was man acting like a god, bioethical issue in modern society. And the next symposium will be this May with the topic the role of Christianity and Islam in addressing climate issues. This is an exhibition, Interfaith Harmony in Albania. And this is the meeting of students of 3 theological departments with the Ambassador of United States in Tirana. In 2020, Islamic Science Department in our university was a partner with the Higher Institute of Religious Studies in Rimini, Italy, in collaboration with the University of San Marino for the master program in interreligious dialogue and international relations. In addition, we have also established the Institute for Freedom of Belief and Democracy, which in cooperation with the United States Embassy in Tirana has organized for several years training programs for students from Albania, Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Serbia. In 2024, the PRISM Dialogue Institute, in collaboration with the Interfaith Organization from Italy and North Macedonia, and with the support of the Anna Lindh Foundation and the participation of OSCE Ambassador in Tirana, we organized the Mediterranean Youth Academy of Culture and Dialogue with 20 young people from 8 European countries. We have here Maid, he participated from Bosnia. These initiatives have shown as the teaching about freedom of religion or belief, not just about transmitting knowledge, but about cultivating awareness and empathy among young people and university students. The most interesting reaction come when students realize that defending this right means defending the rights of everyone, including those with different beliefs. We started some dialogue seminars and panels in different universities in Albania about interfaith dialogue. And another interfaith academic initiative is an Erasmus Plus project titled Facing Global Challenge, Climate Protection, Climate Resilience, and Climate Justice in the Interreligious Education and Training of Teachers. Last year in April, we organized an international meeting of this project, and during this event, we also arranged an international symposium on the role of faith-based actors in environmental conversation, the case of Albania. As part of these activities, during one of the sessions held at the Catholic Church in Albania, the members of the Erasmus delegation planted a cypress in the country courtyard of the Archbishopric of Tirana. And I integrated in my class in master program as a module about faith, environment, and climate change. And 4 students of this program are invited to participate in a training activity about interfaith dialogue in Molina, Spain, last September. And as a conclusion, everyone must understand as Muslims and Christians that reality and destiny, not only for them, but for the entire world from the beginning until its end, depend of the variety of beliefs and convictions. Tradition of religious tolerance among the Albanians is not a product of modern times. It is a tradition that comes from the depth of the centuries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very informative discussion about what's currently all the really interesting things going on in Albania right now. It's very interesting. Okay, can we move on to our next participants, Professor Hamza Preljević and Mirza Ljubović. Hamza is going to present today. Mirza will not be presenting. You will? Okay, then.
We just...
Okay, so that's cool. So without any further ado, you guys can start and divide it up however you want. So go ahead. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you so much for dear and esteemed Professor Kaminski as moderator. To all our guests, I'm very pleased to be here, and also my great respect to our organizer Edo Merčević, who made a great conference for all of us. I always like to give the thank for everyone who was involved. This is not easy, and I'm so glad to be here and to present something interesting from our side. That will be one research work, something what is maybe new and interesting for environment of BI age. After, I always call that post-genocide environment, because we are not created by the normal circumstances as the state. We are creation of huge atrocities, the major one and the worst one after the Second World War, when we said no, not anymore in Europe. It happened, genocide, and we needed to create. In November 21st, 1995, we were in the Dayton conference for the peace. We adopt first draft, then in the Paris we signed Dayton Peaceful Agreement, we call accord, some an agreement, depends in the legal side how you call it, but what we made there, we made divided societies. We made a good soil for tomorrow xenophobia, from Islamophobia, for all kinds of phobias. We are afraid of the truth even. You have free truth in the Bosnia Herzegovina. Very interesting system of understanding how to overcome these elements and the consequences of the genocide in new reality. We are slow in that. We made institutions which we easily block functionality of the state. It is implemented and constructed in our unfortunate constitutional legal order. When you constitute something like that, it is easy to always say we don't have a compromise. We don't have consensus to adopt something. And it is always easier to be on the side who stops something, not who creates something. And this is why we create some kind of idea that Bosnia cannot be normal state, they cannot be function, but this is really, really danger. Making a paradigm in which we all living in society in which we believe that we are not good enough to be a modern democratic state. Plus, we are pushing from Europe, which don't see us as the Frankenstein. We are Frankenstein. We are their own product of international community. How you will, you have a sick patient and you said to him, you can run tomorrow on Olympic Games. Because they are giving conditions and they didn't do anything to heal the wounds, to heal our organism as a state as it is. And this is why we choose this very interesting topic, how we abuse the system of the Dayton using Islamophobia to create diplomacy which work against especially targeting group. This is the Bosniaks, and Bosniaks are Bosnian and Herzegovinian Muslims, which are constituent people, and constituent people means a group who can block any processes, legislative, executive, political, and judicial one in one state. It means they have a power, even if they are 10%, they can block everything in the state. Because of that, we said it is very interesting, sui generis, specific kind of state, where we are making a decision exclusively by the compromise. If you don't have in one table compromise, very similar to the EU, but even EU is seeing how hard is to be functional community if you have Orban who said, no, I will not do that. I will not vote for Ukraine. How we will make functional BIH if we are the only one example after these atrocities that the victims were forced to sit down on the tables with someone who is aggressor. And I don't say subjectively about this. This is the International Court in Hague, whom to believe not International Court, said in conclusion that Croatia, our neighbors, made aggression. It means it's not domestic, civil, armed conflict. It is international armed conflict because we have foreign troops on our soil. And from that position, we see the influences of Zagreb and Belgrade in shaping our tomorrow diplomatic efforts which we have today. And maybe we can move on the other slide just to connect very quickly my idea. The use of Islamophobia through diplomacy to dehumanize Bosniaks, Muslims of Bosnia and Herzegovina, as a constituent people that survived the genocide make, as a result, racism and the hate speech. It's abuse of the freedom of speech. They said, we have a freedom to express our opinion. What kind of opinion if you are creating a new soil for repeating a genocide for the maybe next 30 years? Because we are now in the deadline of what we said, we are getting the red zone of when we are forgetting what happened. In psychology, you have that trauma which will last after 40 years. Leave them the time, and we can maybe start again with the same problems. Psychology said that. We can move to the other slide. I will not take so much from you. Non-state public diplomacy agents. What we have right now. In BIH, we have the only institution who is, by the Dayton Peace Accord in Annex 4 Constitution of BIH, who is created to provide diplomacy, foreign affairs in BIH, our presidency of Bosnia, who is collective body or organ. We have 3 members of the presidency. All they have a right to decide who will be ambassadors, diplomatic agents abroad. And to follow some kind of strategy of the foreign policy, which is not anymore in the force, unfortunately, and we didn't adopt in the parliament law on the foreign affairs of BIH. That means that we are in the legal vacuum. They create that with purpose, that vacuum. Why? Because how one Bosnia complicated with these problems can have one voice in the world. Present them as non-functional, to not have one voice, that we cannot have compromise, and put Islamophobia in that. And then you will got very good results. And that good results for them, of course, for Belgrade and Zagreb, it meaning stopping BIH on the Brussels path, but in the same time using a lot of vacuum for the Russian influence. And Russian influence is here. We are not against Russia. We are for economy. We like China. We like all Eastern countries. But the issue here is that these countries vote against resolution on genocide in Bosnia. This is my red line. I don't want to talk with you at all if you didn't accept that reality. International court said that and you don't vote for that. Can you imagine? Can you find me anyone in the world who did never accept Nuremberg process trial? Ask in China, do they accept? Of course, they accept. But only for BIH they vote against. Russians against. Dubai, Emirates, our friends, neutral. This is diplomacy. This is that what Islamophobia, when you put them, create. Islamic threat. Present Bosniak as the part of Islamic threat. And use that threat from Islam to create something what was a dream in the time of war. And what is the dream? Separated entities who will becoming a new states. Free, we need more free states on the Balkans. Not only Kosovo, we need now Republika Srpska to become a state. We need Herzegovina Republic, which is a Croatian Catholic majority in BiH. With the cantons, a group of the cantons, free cantons with their own majority. Even that we sign agreement, Dayton, in which we create cantons. Bosnia gives the hand to give the cantons that we all be equal, to not see this equality between Croats and the Bosniaks, and how they are returns back after 30 years, making calls for the third, can you imagine, entity which will be tomorrow creation of something what we call the state. And they are, you will see, they are using the lobbies now in the world, how they are doing that. This is these lobbies, and this is very interesting what I wanted in practical way to say. This was the president 2019 of Croatia, Grabar Kitarović, who said, the Islam we knew in Bosnia and Herzegovina is a changing, becoming more radical. Can you imagine? Especially in rural areas. The way of life is changing. Even the appearance of people in terms of clothing and behavior. You see how they are seeing us as a cultural phenomenon. And a much more rigid interpretation of Islamic values. Oh, really? What kind of threat? The most European liberal Muslims they can find in the world. They even protected the churches by their bodies in the time of aggression. We were killing every day 4 years. The most longest siege in the history of the warfare, and we were protecting small Jerusalem, which they have. Today we came in the position that we who had a trauma, who survived a genocide, we said sorry to aggressors, sorry because we're still alive here, because we have a right to be alive. Milanović is the second person. Please, can you move? Okay. Sorry. President of Croatia Zoran Milanović said, so I said it once again, a civil state, can you imagine? They are sharing European values, and they said this. Civil state is a distant dream. Can you imagine the civil state based on the citizens? For him, it is member of EU. It's a dream, and this is a beautiful thing, but first the soap, then a perfume. Can you imagine this quote, what the president wanted to say? Racism, clear face of Islamophobia, proof of Islamophobia. We are not clean enough, even that we are white, even that Milanović and me coming from the same family. My surname, it was Ljubović, older than the Ottomans, we existed before. It means me and Milanović was from the same family. And I'm not clean for him, because I decided in one step of the history that my belief and faith will be different. And that created divided society. And this is what our work works. And this is that source, what I wanted to say. Marx Primer is something new, before you see the date. 12 February 2026. senior research associate of the Heritage Foundation, and the controversial lobbyist Max Primorac from the Croatian Democratic Party, said political Islam is the choice of the Bosniaks in Bosnia Herzegovina, and told political Sarajevo that it would be better to stop oppressing Christian neighbors. Can you imagine someone who survived genocide, we are oppressing? We don't have even that we don't have a money for that. This is first. Second, political Sarajevo. What means that serves? Political Washington. Washington is political. Ankara is political. Albania, Tirana is political. It is not emotional Albania. It is political Albania because you have a no. This is the term used only for Bosnia Herzegovina. Why? Because they wanted to say that here the state don't exist. Constitutional legal order don't exist. Only a policy is the primary source of working with the state. And because of our policy, which we create, maybe he has some dream, nightmare, I don't know, but reality is not, that we are suppressing Christians. And the last, Mile Dodik, maybe you heard about him, is very radical politician, ex-president of Republic of Srpska entity, said, they are trying to make us a minority in majority Muslim environment. Dodik stated that he believes that separation, secession, would enable more stable functioning of BIH. How? If you are destroying a country, how can be functioned anymore? These Muslims are collaborators of Iran and great opponent of Israel and the Jewish. Can you imagine on which sensitivity he goes? But what is crazy, people believe in this. Trump, catch this. This is Trump television. Then you can see. He came there much faster than our diplomacy. Because of that, we are working on this and how we make all these issues. On the end, I can say, how do embassies straighten the division and entity or entities if they are? By using a special parallel relations in our constitutions which gave this possibility of abusement. They are now made for the cultural environment relationship, but they abuse them to produce, to celebrate, I would like to say, promote Belgrade and Zagreb interests by destroying on the end this country. But in this case, it's much more severe. They are using emotions, religion, hate speech, and that to create something what they didn't create in the aggression of BIH. Let God help us to keep this state multicultural, multi-ethnical, how it needs to be, and we always give that hand for that. How we will be, we need our supporters, we need you as this scientific, as a science, which we need to involve interdisciplinary approach of law, of political sciences and culture will make this. Sorry if I made it, this is my conclusion on the end. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Definitely a lot to talk about there. And I guess we have one more presentation. It's going to be a video presentation from Václava, who I guess couldn't make it today. And I guess we can start that now. And then, is she with us through online or like?
No.
So she's not. Okay. So she can't answer any questions. Okay. Okay. So we can watch this. And, yeah. So if you have any questions, we can continue discussion, I suppose, amongst ourselves about her paper, or you can email her directly. Because, again, I feel like if there's something you want to ask related to her paper, we can all, in the group format, still comment on it, because that would make the discussion richer, right? Okay, so we can start. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm really sorry I can't be there with you in person today. I'm happy to be able to share with you my research that is remotely. And thanks a lot to all the organizers for this event and this opportunity. My research looks at constitutionalism, integration, and how Muslims negotiate their identity in Europe. I will take you to 5 countries and share one story from each, France, the UK, Austria, Czechia, and Slovakia. And I chose these countries because they represent very different European contexts, different histories with Islam, and different public debates. And we don't want to understand constitutionalism in this research only as laws or formal rules written in constitutions. We also want to see it as a set of values like freedom, equality, pluralism, and look at how they are lived in everyday life. How does religious visibility, especially visible Muslim identity, shape the everyday experience of freedom? We know that many European countries are built on these ideas, but what I'm really interested in, or what I would like to explore, is how Muslims actually experience them in their ordinary social interactions. So other countries I'm studying protect freedom of religion, equality, and non-discrimination through their laws. Each country has its own legal system, but I don't wish to get into all the details here. The key point is that these laws are meant to reflect the values I just talked about. So in other words, I explore what their freedom really looks like in practice. I'm not trying to make broad generalizations. I'm trying to show the diversity of experiences, but together they can tell us something important about how it feels like to live as a Muslim in Europe today. And at the same time, it can tell us also something about European society itself. So now let's have a look at my respondents. All of them are women. As a woman myself, I can understand their perspectives more deeply. I also know all of them personally, which made the research process much easier. Many Muslims today are hesitant to talk openly about their personal and sensitive experience to a stranger. So I didn't have to spend months building trust because this is often required in anthropological work. One of them even cried during the interview. This shows not only how sensitive the topic is, but also how heavy it can be to live these experiences, sometimes quietly and alone. And what is also worthy of mention is that another respondent said that these experiences we were talking about were hard to admit, even to yourself, let alone to say them openly. So freedom is deeply experienced, yet limited inside the person by the tension between what they feel and what they are willing to admit. And what connects all of my respondents, beyond the fact that they are all women, is that they are either Czech or Slovak converts to Islam, and they have all lived as Muslims for many years in European societies. I also conducted interviews with women born Muslims and immigrants living in Europe, but their perspectives were so different and raised new topics that I decided to focus on respondents who share the experience of being Europeans and converts for now. So first, let me take you to France, a country that officially presents itself as neutral toward all religions, following the principle of laïcité, or French-style secularism. This system is in theory meant to protect freedom by keeping religion separate from the state, but in everyday life it raises a tricky question: what happens to freedom when someone's religious identity is visible in public? One major challenge my respondent deals with is the requirement to appear without a headscarf on official documents. For her, it's not just bureaucracy, it directly affects her personal autonomy and how she defines herself religiously. And because of this, she has refused to apply for French citizenship or a French driver's license, and she even mentioned how humiliating it was for her when she had to submit a photo without her headscarf for her French health insurance card, which was absolutely necessary, and she simply couldn't avoid it because she lives there. Her everyday life is also full of small restrictions. She was once asked to leave a school gym while paying for her child's activity just because of her dress. Modest swimwear isn't accepted in public pools, and in shops, security guards often watch her closely. And what's interesting is that she sometimes tries to reinterpret this attention in public. She tries to see it, for example, as a kind of protection, as if the security guards were there to keep her safe, not to watch her. So such a way of approaching things or changing the reality in her mind to feel better helps her cope with such situation. But the underlying message is still clear for her. Being visibly Muslim makes her stand out, and this otherness is treated with suspicion. So when she talks about headscarf bans in schools and restrictions on headscarves in sports for female athletes, she says she was really blessed to have only sons while living in this country. So these restrictions are seen as strongly gendered, targeting Muslims and women most directly. The second case comes from the United Kingdom, a country with a long-standing Muslim presence dating back to the 19th century and a relatively well-established legal and social framework for religious diversity. My respondent works in a hospital, and even after living almost her whole life in the UK, she knows that her visible Muslim identity is still seen as something extra, something that stands out, something not normal. So even in a country with a large Muslim population, Islam isn't automatically understood or treated as just a normal part of everyday life. She feels there is an unwritten social rule, and anything outside the norm is treated as different, as other. And for her, the main problem isn't the law itself, but how she feels in the society, that people often don't see her, don't recognize her Muslim identity. At work, her colleagues, or just in casual situations. And she believes that more education and open conversations, dialogues, especially in workplaces, could make a difference. And what helps her is existing in her Muslim community, which is for her a crucial source of support and stability because she has no Muslim family, and it gives her a sense of grounding. The third case comes from Austria, where Islam is also recognized as a registered religion. This means that Muslims can receive state funding, they can officially run schools, they can offer religious education in public schools and have legal status for marriages and other formal religious acts. My respondent lives near the Austrian-Slovak border. In Austria, my respondent describes religious visibility, particularly the headscarf, as relatively normalized due to a long-standing Muslim presence, especially among Turkish communities. Visible Muslim identity is not automatically treated as exceptional, so it can be said that it reduces the pressure on Muslim women to justify their appearance or explain their faith. One key point from her story is that freedom and inclusion don't come only from society or the state. They are also shaped by how you present yourself. She often says that the way you show your Muslim identity, how you speak, how you act, how you carry yourself strongly affects how people react. In other words, Muslim identity is constantly being read or interpreted by others, and when it is shown with confidence, clarity, and authenticity, it can help your identity be more accepted as it is. And this is especially clear at work. She says she has had mostly positive experiences in different jobs, and she has not felt disadvantaged because of her religion. She also stresses the importance of her own agency in everyday situations. For example, she tells employers early that she will need short prayer breaks, and these requests have been always respected. Another interesting thing my respondent mentioned is about Muslim children. Of course, not all schools in Austria recognize Muslim holidays, and this can affect how much children feel like they belong. But overall, her story suggests that Austria today is fairly supportive for Muslim life. Freedom and coexistence are protected both by the law and by social acceptance, at least to some degree. She says that she rarely has negative experiences in Austria, and when they do happen, she usually links them not to Austrian society as a whole, but to individuals from other countries, most often Slovaks. But she also shows that this pluralism is still fragile. it depends a lot on politics because, for example, right now there are debates about possible headscarf bans in Austrian schools. In Slovakia, our fourth case, Islam is not officially recognized as a religion because the law requires a minimum of 50,000 members for official status. The Muslim community is very small, only a few thousand people, which limits its institutional presence and visibility in public life. My respondent lives in Dunajska Streda, ethnically Hungarian town in Slovakia. And she explained that the main problem is not Slovak law itself, but that local officials often don't know much about issues related to religion or to Muslims. And because of this, she is especially grateful that she studied law at university, since many local civil servants are poorly trained and unfamiliar with the rules. And this became clear in everyday situations. For example, when she was arranging personal documents or needed her marriage to her husband officially recognized. So his story shows a clear gap between the law on paper and how it works in real life. Rights may exist formally, but using them often depends on your own ability to defend them. That's why she thinks that local administrators could really use better training. For her, Slovakia feels very anti-Muslim, and many public attitudes are shaped by ignorance and stereotypes about Islam. She faced marginalization through social coldness and suspicion. She mentioned comments at work about her clothing and described situations where her children faced unfair pressure at schools, like being encouraged to eat pork. And these experiences are not always clear cases or clear cases of legally punishable discrimination, but over time they build up and they can create feeling of being pressured to appear normal. And importantly, she describes an intergenerational burden. While her children are actively integrated into Slovak society through schools, sports, and music education, she feels that she must constantly clean at home the harmful biases transmitted through the social environment. But the central topic in her account is the absence of a local Muslim community. She repeatedly frames Islam as a fundamentally social religion, one that should be based on shared practice, embodied rituals, and everyday relational or social support. And living far from the nearest mosque and without a network of local Muslim families, she describes her religious life as Islam through a screen. What does it mean? She of course practices what she can practice, but she has to study Islam through a screen. She has to stay in touch with other Muslim women who live far away through a screen. So she keeps saying or repeating that it feels like she is living Islam through a screen. And it takes great courage from her, but despite these challenges, she actively tries to build a sense of community where none exists, both for herself, for her 3 children, and for others who may one day live in the same era. Last country is Czechia. Czechia doesn't have historical experience with Islam or Muslim communities, and this means that many public negative attitudes are shaped more by lack of knowledge than by direct experience with Muslim people or Islamic culture. And according to the last respondent, she is a university professor who teaches while wearing a headscarf. It's a very rare position in the Czech context. Written laws and official rules are mostly seen as fair and protective. So if a Muslim required legal support or protection, they would probably get it. The problem appears again in everyday practice. Individual officials or employees may interpret the rules differently, change them, or apply them only in some cases. And because of this, discrimination doesn't feel like a top-down system. It feels more like you are at the mercy of individual decisions. For example, my respondent told me about going to a male doctor with her stomach pain. The doctor told her to take off her headscarf because she is in Europe. And it's hard to respond in that moment because you are just shocked and you don't expect it because the doctor is speaking from a position of power. And on the level of social norms, she says there is always a risk that even one biased person or someone with a stereotypical mindset can make a Muslim woman with headscarf or a darker skinned person automatically suspicious. You can see this in everyday places like shops where staff may watch you more closely, or at airports where Muslim women may be checked more often. And you don't feel that these moments are always open racism, but small, repeated signs of suspicion build up over time and become emotionally tiring. But still, she knows that things are slowly improving. Young people who travel and meet people from different cultures usually have more open attitude. They are more open-minded, while older people often don't know any Muslims and may never have spoken to one. They know just what offers our media, and these people, they are more afraid than they actually hate Muslims. And my respondent also highlights a form of indirect exclusion. Nothing is formally prohibited, yet everyday services are culturally structured in ways that make them difficult to use. So as a Muslim woman, you normally avoid gyms, spas, or some swimming facilities. And this barrier is not legal, but of course rooted in the cultural design of public services. And my respondent's daughter provides the perspective of today's Muslim teenagers in Czechia. She doesn't wear a headscarf, so her faith is not visible on her. And she has a strategy of sharing her faith little by little. At first, when she says she's Muslim in a comfortable situation, people often react with wow and find it exotic or interesting. They want to know more and they are curious. But when she adds that she actually prays and fasts and follows religious practices, people's reactions often change. She then feels seen as strange or too different. And because of this, she says that she feels safer when she is in such situations with another Muslim, not just for emotional support, but also because explaining Islam in Czech settings this religion can be difficult, especially for a young Muslim on their own. So looking across these stories, I want to highlight 5 key points. First one, constitutional freedom cannot be taken for granted. It doesn't exist only on paper. It is conditional and negotiated in everyday life. So how well people understand their rights strongly shapes how they experience freedom. Second, freedom is experienced differently when you are visibly Muslim. A headscarf or even darker skin can make public spaces places of close attention, suspicion, or subtle restriction. And in this context, it is important how someone presents themselves confidently, clearly, authentically, and it matters. Third, freedom has limits. Many societies may accept Islam as an identity, but they can respond differently when Islam is practiced visibly. This is often the point at which curiosity can turn into discomfort and inclusion into exclusion. Fourth, freedom is not only legal, it is relational. Community, even a small one, significantly shapes everyday well-being. It can be the difference between constant stress and a sense of belonging. Fifth, freedom is also something people actively create through their approach to everyday life. It may involve the ability to reframe situations, adjust expectations, and maintain dignity even when it is not immediately visible in order to navigate daily life. So to own sense of self. Thank you for listening.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for the very provocative and interesting discussion that we've had for the last hour, a little over an hour, I think. So I guess now we can sort of open the floor to comments and discussions. I just have a couple comments I'd like to just bring up. The first one's for Hysni specifically, and you talk about you talk a lot about the importance of civil society, and I agree with that. A lot of my research these days focuses on how to strengthen and bolster civil society. You speak a lot about the different elements that can help build civil society, including NGOs. But one of my concerns, though, when it comes to NGOs, and I'd like to hear your response to this, is like, what about the real possibility, the real reality of NGOs sometimes actually hijacking local political discourse and imposing their values, their American values, or EU values, or leftist values, or whatever values might be in play on the host country that they're in? Do you see a potential for NGOs to, like, at some level they open more room for civil society, but at the same time they also constrain it and they sort of can create their own sort of inauthentic, non-local alternative, right? How is, one, do you see that as a real problem? In Bosnia, I think it is an issue. And two, because there's so many NGOs here and they all have totally different agendas. And two, how do you think countries like, let's be honest, sort of weaker countries in the Balkans can confront this so they don't get swallowed up by whatever the interests of the hegemons are?
Yeah, thank you very much. Since we don't have, let's say, a consolidated state and state actors, and even the civilians, the society, they don't have trust in the state, let's say, institutions. NGOs are seen as an element to do that, to raise the voice, to raise awareness. So it's true that they bring their perspective, they bring a different culture, but I can talk, let's say, about the Albanian case. So we have the same government for 13 years. Even people who have power, they used to speak the truth out loudly, but they will find a way to stop him. And just imagine what can the society do in front of this situation. So somehow it is needed, even though it has, let's say, a lot of challenges, a lot of problems within it, it is needed at least to maintain a little bit balance of that, let's say, the international, let's say, power within these weak countries. So actually we have been, since 2016 or 17, Albania has opened the process of an EU enlargement. They have sent us a list of full of the requirements that has to be done within the 10 years. And actually, we have proceeded only by 5 or 6% of those things. So we get EU funds, and after some months, you get the minister or the vice minister who has been corrupted and has taken a lot of money for themselves. So somehow we need those voices to somehow to shake them, to say that we are here. And it is a common thing for for the Balkan region, that we wait for others to do our, let's say, our politics and policies, because our political bodies, they are somehow they have a common sense with one another, even with the opposition. So they protect one another. They will find a way to smooth the things. But actually, we are in Albania. We are going through a legislative change, for example, because the vice prime minister is under the legal, how do you say, surveillance for corruption, and it goes directly to the prime minister after that, and we are changing the law. So they are changing the law because they don't want the parliament or the general prosecutor to free them from the duty. So they have the mandate that you cannot judge them when they are on duty. So they want to change the law, actually, and they have the immunity. Actually, there are some smaller parties working with NGOs to raise awareness on this regard. So it's not the right step to go to EU enlargement in that way. So, but that's why it is needed in my opinion.
But don't you see that's a problem, sort of, that you're literally admitting that you're completely dependent on NGOs because, like, you guys can't sort out your own affairs. Like, what can be done domestically? Like, that can sort of at least start. I get it. NGOs play a positive role. I'm not saying they're all bad, but the way you just described it is sort of how I see it as well. Is like you've got to really dependent on this, and you can't survive without it. And they serve as your counterbalance to your corrupt politicians. That's really scary, almost, right? It's almost like you have no autonomy. What about the people? So what can the people do to sort of work with the NGOs in a way that will still, value their autonomy and opinion, but at the same time can help balance both, I guess, these two competing forces of NGOs from the EU and these corrupt politicians? It seems like a real problem. And maybe
Yes,
Hamza,
it is.
you guys can comment. Is this similar in Bosnia too? Because I don't really know the layout as well. But
So actually, we have another issue. The thing that I wanted to mention, we have elections in last March, and the law on elections that was voted by two main parties, Socialist and Democrat Party, doesn't allow the smaller parties to become in power very soon. For example, the case is that the Socialist Party can have one deputy or a parliament member with 10,000 votes, and a small party has to have 25,000 votes for one parliament member. So it is so difficult for these small parties to come in power. So they have the power, they maintain that, and it is a real problem. That's why we are in such a vicious circle that we look that we are doing something right, okay, and then we turn, we go down as well.
interesting. Hamza, what do you like?
I mean, the case in Bosnia is the same regarding the numbers of the NGOs in the States. We have 12,500 NGOs working in Bosnia Herzegovina. Usually those NGOs are not neutral. They are either working for political parties, aligning with interests of specific political parties, promoting them, or they are aligning with certain embassies or the states. So in terms of the NGOs, they do not act in the Balkans, especially Bosnia Herzegovina, much independently. Yes, they do produce some of the positive sides, but at the same time, you are right. But this is one of the Western criticism that goes against the Western NGOs. It is the steps of creating the dependency on the NGOs. So you can see the number of the NGOs. We have thousands of people who are employed in the NGO sectors, and they rely on the grants. And they are now ready to whatever is set for the money. And usually, if you are trying to oversee a political analysis by anyone from Bosnia Herzegovina, you just look at who is funding it. And then you just see
Understand
why he's
what's
taking
going around.
such steps.
Absolutely. No, that's a really, really interesting point. And, it's sort of the same kind of critique I have of, interesting enough, I made this argument about the proxies that Iran creates in, like, follow me here, it sounds like I'm going off track, but it makes sense, right? These proxies, like, Iran should just cut the funding for them, and that'll stop the conflict. But Iran really can't, because these people now are clients of them, and they expect that money, right? And what do you tell these people? Well, thank you for being our proxy for the last 20 years, but go find a real job now, right? These people could turn against you, right? And the same thing with, if you take that logic, these NGO people, the people working for the NGOs here that are dependent upon this, if that source of funding is cut off, it could really disrupt the local ecosystem of how things work, right? So I think these are really important things to think about when it comes to the NGO situation. I just got one more. Yeah, go ahead.
So does that mean that we take a look at actors like Hamas and Hezbollah as NGOs?
No, I'm not trying to make that link.
No, I'm not intending to be flippant, although it might sound that way.
Go, yeah. I mean, you can develop this. Yeah, go ahead.
Structurally, I think that some of the same challenges that then we see in working with those entities applies with NGOs, and I would argue particularly with faith-based NGOs. I think that groups like, say, Samaritan's Purse and some others, as you said, I mean, they come with their own agendas, oftentimes nefarious. They have their thumb on the proverbial scale, and I think that they have to be dealt with extreme caution.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I agree, actually, very much.
Thank you for the presentations. I have not met in the morning the two of you. My name is Özlem. I am working with Islam and Liberty Network. I'm on the board. However, primarily I am a director and member of the board of the Association for Liberal Thinking in Turkey, which is operating for more than 30 years of time. It is not a typical think tank. We are trying to sustain a network among academics in Turkey who are studying on this. But furthermore, we have worked on the fundamental problems of Turkey, which are the Kurdish issue, the Alawite issue, religious freedom. We have conducted vital comprehensive EU projects on freedom of expression and freedom of religion. Many years we have dealt with this, we have conducted programs with the religious leaders, with Muslim and non-Muslim communities. So I understand you quite well, and I have been in this NGO business thing and have been among the other NGOs, human rights NGOs, who have been mostly dominated by leftist human rights organizations, and just found the single path to be against everything, and they cannot see the constructive or good, good reforms or good steps solving the issue, and they also cannot show a path to the religious communities as well. However, usually religious communities in Turkey are relatively wiser than those leftist human rights organizations, because they can make comparisons with the early Turkish Republican history, where their properties were grasped by the state, their fundamental rights were ignored, violated, and there have been important reforms that they have been recognized anyhow. So we are a group of academicians and opinion leaders, writers. We have organized kind of workshops bringing together constructive people, constructive politicians, academicians, opinion leaders, together with the representatives of religious communities, and try to make them feel that they are not going to be judged with whatever they are, however they are going to express their violations, their problems in the field, that they can easily express. However, in the meantime, an atmosphere, a climate should also be created that they cannot judge the others. They should be ready to listen to the others. Plus, we are here to discuss a constitutional framework to overcome and to solve everyone else's problems over there. So we are looking for a framework for everyone, for every individual, for every community, to compensate their problems and try to create a framework to live peacefully. It really takes time, a long time, and this is, you go forward, sometimes you go back in this struggle of fundamental rights. We should both get engaged with constructive politicians and find constructive leaders, opinion leaders among different religious communities. I'm sorry that mostly I have made a comment.
It's very interesting.
Furthermore, I was going to say, these organizations have been under the influence of collectivist socialist organizations. So we really need to bring new terminology, a classical liberal consistent terminology, and try to earn the trust of different communities. That we are also talking to address your problems, understand your problems, but we need a consistent background that we need to make them realize. Otherwise, it's quite difficult for Mirza's presentation, which is quite important, we also try to work on Islamophobia issues. We have published a good book, which is also translated in English but not published, which we can cooperate and do something more. This is a problem when we deal with Westerners, with non-Muslims, there are also some people that we can find with goodwilling. I don't know, we should do something like in the primary school. See, your
Professor
scripts
Hamza
were quite important. Show
created.
this. He said that this is a threat, but what happened? This is not a threat. You know, we just like in primary schools, we need to make tables. This was said, but this has not happened. This is, claimed, but this was not the reality. This is what we have to show.
Proven truth.
Show them.
Proven truth.
Yeah.
What I said about the topic, everything Professor Hamza Preljević prepared. I just come into the legal, from the legal side, just to help, or we have that kind of collaboration between many years, and I believe that brothers and sisters are law and political sciences somehow. We are giving the meaning about that. But however, you have right, but no, we have archive in Sarajevo, 2 million of documents are here captured, and we are now fighting that all Hague documents can, truth is pretty much known, like 30 years,
Yes, of course.
you know, but now it's abusing. It is time of abusement of international law. Everything is now dropping down.
Indeed.
Everything, declining, all what we learn, all what we knew, today is the question. And human rights are becoming now fashion. What is human rights? Fashion that we are repeating.
If I can just simplify what Mirza has presented and
Yeah.
why Bosnia
Yes,
Herzegovina is
yes.
leading. So what we have to understand, you have a state in which the Muslims are a majority. But at the same time, you have the same state in which the Muslims are the majority, against whom the state institution and the parallel diplomacy based on the Islamophobia are working on the people who are presented as the majority in the state. So you can find it in many states around. It's not only because the Serbs are doing it, but it's at the same time because of the corrupted Bosniaks who are at the same time aligning with the foreign interests from abroad. And this is a very specific case. So I just yesterday gave the interview to Anadolu Agency. It will appear in Turkish language soon. It's about what's happening now in Bosnia and Herzegovina with the recent visit of Milorad Dodik to the United States, which should not be overseen. Those of you who know what is Washington Times, Washington Times just has published a few days ago, Republika Srpska deserves independence.
Can you imagine?
It's a success of lobbying.
Yeah.
The Golden Institute for International Strategy, who is very close to Trump, whose president is a former president of the National Security Agency, or the Council of the United States, has announced Milorad Dodik as the president of Republika Srpska, someone who is bent to deal with politics. And what is now happening abroad, based on the Islamophobia and the hatred against Muslims, we are aiming to present. Why? Because in the past, the hatred towards the Muslims led to the genocide. And now we are keeping silent towards it.
Yes.
This is paving the steps to it, maybe not directly towards the independence of the Republic of Srpska, but paving the way to it, creating huge autonomy of the Republic of Srpska, and to create a generation of Bosniaks, because this is the plan that I wrote up a paper in it, I published it in a Skopje journal. This is what I call it is the detachment policy of Republika Srpska, to create a generation of Muslims in Bosnia and Herzegovina who are going to say in 20, 30, 40 years, we don't need you. We want to separate. And this is paving a way.
But Europe don't want majority to one
This is
state
raising the
again.
awareness of what is happening.
They stop.
But you cannot find internationally a case in which the institutions of a state where Muslims are majority are
So then, okay.
It's
if
a
we-
very unique case.
So my question is this, and I'll open for, I promise, my last intervention. Like, this is what I always wonder in this whole discussion. Like, we have to assume the Islamophobia is a constant here. It's a variable that's not going away. All right, we have to assume the international law is probably not going to do much. So what can Bosniaks do practically to preserve their state? Beyond just, worrying about what Dodik says or complaining to the EU. Like, what can you guys do here domestically? How can, you reshape your own future? Because in my opinion, if the country's going to survive, Bosniaks have to somehow be able to reclaim control of their own collective legacy. Because it's frightening to me that so much attention has been paid to Dodik's intervention in Washington. It shouldn't have to be this way, right? That's the point. Like the fact that he could go to talk to some Trump advisor and it becomes an existential crisis, that fact alone is a problem. It should just be like, who cares, this crazy guy who's out of power is talking to Trump. It doesn't matter because we're stable enough as a state. So what can be done in the short and medium term to build your position?
So you raise a good question. So Republican Srpska and Milorad Dodik, the Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina are not good because they are good, but because Bosniaks are better in doing with the Muslims what they are supposed to. And just in a few days, my new column is going to come out, going to be published by Preljević newspaper, in which I wrote the strategy for Bosniaks in Bosnia and Herzegovina, what we are supposed to do.
Excellent.
Number one is we should understand that we are living in a parallel society. And if we cannot affect the Serbian ambassadors that are representing Bosnia and Herzegovina, we should understand what we are supposed and what we can do. Number one, the major mistakes Bosniaks are doing, the Muslims, is what I call we are Bidenists. Usually, we are those, in the case of the United States, relying on the Democrats. When the Republicans come, we stop cooperating with the United States. I don't see a huge problem in cooperating with anyone in the United States, but I see a problem when the United States don't see Bosnia and Herzegovina as a strategic partner. And this is what we should understand. We don't belong to any party in the United States, but we are supposed to be a strategic partner of the United States. Number two, we have our friends from Albania. We are supposed to understand what Kosovo has done. We must follow the same buckets.
Yes.
We have so many parks, we have so many streets in Sarajevo. None of those are named by the congressmen in the United States who, during the war and aggression of Bosnia and Herzegovina, were asking for lifting the embargo. Because we had embargo during the wartime in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And none of those two main congressmen in the United States, we didn't name anything after them. Number three, Srce Sarajevo is one of the very prestigious rewards that we are annually giving. I propose immediately call the congressmen from the United States and award them the Srce Sarajevo. Number five, I'm worried that we should not fall into the trap of rewarding or calling the mayor of New York to Sarajevo. The Serbs would like to see it. Because if he, as a Muslim, would appear here, they would say, you see, these are the Muslim guys. So they are just playing with Muslims around.
We will
And
come
then
in
they
the
will
trap.
come closer to the Serbs. The follow one is we have entity federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. That is like sleeping. The entity in which the Bosniaks are the majority should lobby for the interest outside. The further step is the investment from the United States. Our defense industry should be given to them. And this is what I'm also proposing. The production of arms in Bosnia and Herzegovina should be done in cooperation with the United States. Then further, we could go in details, but Juma is going to come with the diaspora diplomacy, citizen diplomacy. So many things are supposed to be done. And now what we are doing is a form of a citizen diplomacy. That we are aiming at affecting you as academicians, you as those that are working at different universities with different profiles of students, are meeting with different people to have an impression and to go and to speak about Bosnia and Herzegovina. So you listed about Serbia as a genocide, you saw some of the signs of the war, and you can make the impression of it. But what I can tell you is that 90% of Bosniaks, when they go abroad, they keep silent
Yes.
about what's happening.
They don't
here.
know
They
what
are
to say.
ashamed of speaking about genocide.
Yes.
They are ashamed about speaking to the oppression, and that we are becoming a minority as a majority in the state. In the Republic of Srpska, there is no legitimate representation of Bosniaks. Serbs who just help for themselves for the sake of the respecting the constitution. Bosniaks, they take the Bosniak seats in the ministries, in the parliament, in other offices of the entity Republic of Srpska.
Yes.
To conclude, we are not, Serbs are not good as we are bad. It's about Bosniaks here.
Go ahead. We got 10 minutes, so let's like quick comment.
But the first one is a little personal, so you don't have to answer it. Which is, as a Turkish guy, I like Ali Zerbegovic. I read his books and I like his ideas. But since you are very criticizing about the Dayton Agreement, I'm wondering what do you think about Zerbegovic?
You cannot connect Izetbegovic with Dayton Peaceful Agreement. He was just a party who needed to be there. Everything what I criticize about Dayton Peaceful Agreement is about the Frankenstein as a state who is not functioning 35 years. Not because Izetbegovic is like me in that circumstances. When you have a powerful, you must know that Security Council is the ones who is the only one who can, by resolution, gives obligations as something enforce the international law, and it was a very hard times in which we needed to conclude that, but it is not, we are today abusing Dayton Peaceful Agreement. This is what I wanted to say. No any connection with it.
About Alia, once the Dayton Peace Agreement was written, what he said, it's better to have an unjustice treaty than having deaths of the people.
He is not satisfied with
Speaking
it.
about him, 30 years passed since the Dayton Peace Agreement, plus since he died. How many Bosniaks in here, how the state has named any scholarship program after him? Zero. And you know who's going to name the most prestigious scholarship? Ali Izetbegovic. In Bosnia Herzegovina, it's a Turkish park.
Yes,
It's about soon, it's going
you
to
have
be
a park,
released
you have
very soon.
museums.
Deals are about to be finalized. It's again Turkey who is standing behind this state, not the Bosniaks. The Bosniaks are ashamed. Majority are ashamed. And now I guess that children, it's my guess, because if you would show his picture to someone who is now 11 and ask him, who is this? They wouldn't know. That's the issue. Why I try to avoid.
Because during my previous visit in Bosnia, they told me that almost 50% of Bosnian people doesn't like it. I'm not sure it's a good, it's a true information or not.
Edo maybe knew some analysis, I don't know.
But I would like to connect this issue with the institutional quality again. One problem we are sharing in all of our countries. And just like the synopsis you mentioned, what Aya said that, any peace is better, except peace is the most important part. Is that maybe one of the biggest problems for us to improve institutional quality in our countries? Because, as I mentioned yesterday, the process of improving might lead to conflicts and therefore, tolerate it. Because the most important part is life, preservation of life. And if we are to improve our situation at the cost of lives, then it is better to tolerate the situation as it is. Because as you mentioned, the beautiful thing about Syria, now we can make all these improvements and reforms, but I don't think that the families are really happy about the situation which led to this kind of situation. I'm sure if you ask the Syrian population, they would have said, no, we are happy to tolerate the dictator, but to protect our life. And I think in many of our countries, this is the situation. That they simply, it's a locked-in situation. How to get out of it without massive destruction, without massive killing, without massive people displacement, without massive punishment. And I think
I wanted just to to a Dayton peace agreement, I can talk 10 hours of the positive sides how we can use Dayton agreement, but we cannot because we have EU membership neighborhood. Croatia, who is stopping, blocking functionality, presenting that this what Croatia had inside of Dayton agreement is unfunctional state. Bosnia didn't say that. We are the last one who blocks something. We are giving hands all the time. This is our problems. We are too much good for this neighborhood. This is the issue. This is conclusion. We are too good, and our ideas are cosmopolitan. Even more than the United States. They don't know what is that we know that.
Okay, we got time. We got
but
time
we
for.
don't have time.
My
Yeah.
second question.
Okay, quickly, because we have 3 minutes before we gotta end here. So,
During our preparations for our presentation, Professor Bekimrat and I make a conversation about adding something about Bosnia, but we couldn't find too much information about what liberal actors, political thinkers, what are they thinking about the Bosnia issue right now. Since you show lots of examples, I wonder what liberals think, because I believe they are mostly Zionist or nationalist,
Radical.
European people. Do
But-
you think what liberal actors really think about this situation?
They are minority. In Serbia are minority. In every Balkan state, ultra-right parties,
But
nationalists
we are
are
with them,
ruling.
right? You are with them.
Oh, you are not.
You are supporting.
How? We are liberal. We are liberal. We are not ultra. Why? Because we want citizen country. We want EU, NATO. They are liberal parties. This is why we are in different positions. National parties from the Bosniak side is always liberal. We don't have extreme ideas of killing, of genocide, of secession. From whom we will secede? We are living here. This is the issue. And can you imagine that someone is asking separation and secession who made genocide on other side? The only one who have a legal, legitimate right to secede, they are Bosnians. But where to secede? Because we are already here. We don't have a reason for it.
Okay,
But
guys.
we don't have time.
I wish we could go on, and inshallah we can continue the discussions during lunch, but it is Juma.
Actually, the next session after the Juma lunch, it is again about Islamophobia.
Okay, great.
So we put Bosnia, and most probably similar issues that will appear again.
All right. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate this. I think this is really productive, and thank you.